I was, like many of you, I would venture to say most of you, I was raised here in America. But as the child of immigrant parents and as an immigrant myself, I grew up with two cultures. As an American, but also as an Indian. But that could not have prepared me for when I moved to India at the age of 17 to pursue my bachelor's degree. Now, India is an amazing place, and I've had some of the most meaningful experiences of my life there. And I met so many people that changed me and made me grow. And sometimes I would meet someone just once, and they would change the way that I saw the world in just a few moments that I spent with them. I remember I was coming home from college once in my second year there, and I lived in this 10-story apartment building, but it had these old rusted gates on the elevators. Like, they were really old-timey and not very safe. And I was struggling with this gate, trying to get it open. And this elderly woman approached me, and she must have been at least 80 years old. She was wearing traditional Indian clothes, she was wearing a sari, and her ears were stretched from all of the jewelry that was hanging from them. So we get into the lift together. They're called lifts in India because, British English. And I pressed the button for my floor, and I took a step back, and as I did that, she caught my attention, and she said, "I'm going to the 4th floor. Can you push the button for me?" And I looked at her, and I didn't understand why she had asked me to push the button. I mean, the elevator was very small, smaller than this carpet. And she said, "I can't read the numbers. Can you push the button for me?" And in that moment, I realized that she had probably never been to school before. I realized that I had never met anyone who had never been to school before. And that told me something about how privileged my own life was. How many people here have ever met anyone who has never had any kind of formal education? No homeschooling, no school, no preschool, nothing. And it's not very common, and it shocked me. It really did. And I started to wonder why it affected me so much. I started to wonder why I should care, and why everyone in the world should care about an old woman from a rural village in India who didn't know her numbers. It turns out that there is a genuine, selfish reason that the individual should care about access to resources in obscure parts of the world that they've never heard of. It's called egoistic altruism, and this is what it means. So, for most of human history, the world's economy was focused on agricultural output, which is limited by things like land and water supply. So if I have more land, by definition, you have less of it. That all changed during the Industrial Revolution, when we went from this to having just unprecedented levels of agricultural growth, and also great advances in the fields of medicine and engineering. And that led to a previously impossible level of economic growth. And that growth changed the world from a zero-sum game to a positive-sum game. It's no longer true that if I have more of something, you inherently have less of it. Innovation. Innovation is what our society is centered around now. Innovation and the exchange of ideas, which is the goal of organizations like TED. Now, the nature of innovation is such that it is driven by supply and demand. The demand increases when more people are richer and have the excess income to contribute to developing these innovations and these ideas. And the supply increases when people can contribute their time and their effort. Improving the lives of the people who are the worst off has a twofold increase in improving and increasing innovation. It simultaneously makes it easier for ideas to be produced and increases the market for them, the demand for them. But those ideas have to be nurtured into existence. And we never know where they'll come from. So the next potential Nobel Prize winner may never reach their potential if they don't have access to an education. The next tech giant may never learn how to use a computer. And those innovations and ideas could improve our own lives or even save them. Now let's examine that claim for a moment because it is a big one. Let's talk about the field of medicine. Let's say that the top 5% of the world's population have the expendable income to donate to the development of medical research. Now, medical research has come a long way, leaps and bounds, in just the last few decades. But imagine how much farther along we'd be if it was 20% or 100%. That could lead to unprecedented growth in the medical field, even today. And those ideas that spring forth from that growth could cure cancer or HIV or paralysis. That is a hypothetical, but it does demonstrate my point. The question is, how? How do we work towards a world like that? And there's a lot of very dedicated organizations striving for these goals. But the one I want to talk about today is called the Hunger Project. And before you guys say anything, I'm not affiliated with them. I wish I was. No, call me if you're watching. But what I find really interesting about the Hunger Project is their approach. They empower individuals living in rural communities to become agents for their own change and their own growth in an effort to move towards sustainable progress. And they start with women. The vast majority of the world's poor are women. 2/3 of the world's illiterate population is female. And of the school-age children not in school, most are girls. When women are supported and empowered, everybody, all of society benefits. Their families are healthier, more children go to school, agricultural output improves, and incomes increase. And all of those factors favor an increase in the supply and demand of innovation that could change our lives. I'm going to leave you with one last story. My grandparents were poor. They did not have a lot of money. They did not have a lot of education between the two of them. And like you do, they had 4 daughters. And so my grandmother, the amazing woman that she was, may she rest in peace, she worked extremely hard and put herself through nursing school while raising 4 children to provide a better life for them. And those children went on to do amazing things. One is the president of a pharmaceutical company that develops drugs for cancer. Another is the CEO of India HIV/AIDS Alliance, a nonprofit organization in India that tackles issues like HIV, AIDS, and drug abuse. So we can't all feed the hungry or cure cancer, but I would ask you to look into your own lives and see who you could help, who you could support, who you could empower. Because you never know what kind of change they're going to bring to the world. Maybe it's not crazy to say, let's live in a world where everyone has access to the resources to provide healthy, productive lives for themselves and for their families. Maybe it's not crazy to say, let's reform education so it's more holistic, more accessible, and more affordable. Maybe when we all do better, we will all do better. Thank you for your time.